This is just a very, very quick video to say I have just accidentally come across this article online. What was it? Let me just find it. Where was it? Right. Born Free Live. Eastbourne's PC Scott Franklyn Leicester is named Officer of the Year. This is the same police officer who, on the 29th of April 2021, I have a recording of a criminal on a tag threatening to beat me senseless at 3 AM in temporary accommodation. I'm currently in emergency accommodation and I'm getting legal help. But this was temporary accommodation. So, and 3 hours after I recorded myself phoning 999 and I recorded this criminal threatening to beat me senseless, PC Scott Franklyn Leicester was the investigating officer for this criminal's crimes. Now, Sussex Police is one of the most corrupt forces in the UK, as I found out. And when he turned up at 6 AM, 3 hours later, I'm terrified. I'd already previously been attacked when I was in the bath to the point where I thought I'd be killed. And the 3 stooges who turned up to that incident were the same ones who assaulted me on Beachy Head just a few days earlier, stripped me naked, did everything to me. I reported a solicitor to the Legal Ombudsman who had said that I acted in self-defence. With that incident, with the incident that I'm now describing that happened on the 29th of April 2021 at 3 o'clock in the morning, PC Scott Franklyn Leicester had turned up as a response to my 999 call. I'm terrified for my life. He pulled out his phone and he said, "I've got a warrant for your arrest." So there's me trembling and shaking, saying, "Thank goodness you're here." She's continuing to terrorise me. This grown adult who's a raging alcoholic on a tag in my council accommodation. I recorded the people who put her on a tag, the company who put her on a tag. I recorded them saying how shocked that they were to hear what had been happening in my home, how I'd had my bedroom window smashed, the neighbourhood policing team did not come out within 2 consecutive days, etc., etc. And he's turned up to arrest me. Yes, as you can imagine, you're in your own home, you've been threatened with assault by a dangerous criminal in your council shared accommodation, HMO, and you're being taken in your nightwear to Brighton from Eastbourne. Or first out you're detained and then you're taken in your nightwear and then you're released onto the streets in your nightwear. Now, the solicitor who dealt with that could not understand how a welfare check in the first place on a world famous suicide spot could end up with me being convicted of assault. And I ended up reporting her to the Legal Ombudsman because she said, this is what they do in the UK. This is the UK criminal justice system, the world-renowned hub for human trafficking is the UK and MK Ultra. and the rest of it, all socially engineered as part of it. And she had said to me, try and get a probation officer, plead guilty so that you can get a probation officer to help you with housing. Interesting. So that's why I reported her to the Legal Ombudsman. I came very close to suing the Herald for libel, but I wasn't well because of the stress that was being piled and piled and piled on me as a targeted individual. So I am going to put a link in the description to this article, because this Scott Franklyn Lester is Officer of the Year, and he's been nominated by his mates. Yeah, there he is with all his medals. His female colleague has got the checkered board, disassociation checkerboard. All their mates in the club. All there. You're aware of the 8-pointed star, aren't you? If you're watching this. And it's occultic symbols. Huh? But you can't be a Freemason to get into the police. Even though it's all based on the occult and masonry. No, of course not. But at the very least, his mates have nominated him. Do you realise I helped a plainclothes police officer who had a guy on his back, and I rang the police for him. He needed backup. And it was not too far from the property where I was being terrorised. And one of my assailants was mentioned in the national news because I fled the property with my stuff in the room, and I self-funded the Cavendish Hotel for 9 months for my safety with back tip. So I'm just keeping a very, very, very long story this short. So basically, one of my assailants, Sherelle Clark and Dion Clark, mother and daughter, jailed for 5 years for mugging the elderly. And they had 22 previous convictions, and they had been mentioned previously online as doing the same thing, mugging the elderly. And they'd been released from prison after just 2 years just to do the same thing again. Dangerous, dangerous drug addict. Very dangerous criminals. And isn't it interesting that Eastbourne Borough Council are still abusing me even now with legal help by saying my partner's not allowed in here when he's been bringing me food from all the homeless charities in Eastbourne. He's been coming backwards and forwards on the bus because I'm out of town just to bring me food so I don't starve, and toilet rolls and the rest of it because I've got no money left because it's all gone on travel, going to Hellingly, going to all these places, public transport, accommodation, food. And he's bringing me free food and everything. But guess what? Dogs are allowed in here. 2 great big dogs who constantly bark. They smell. There's banging, thumping, slamming. But Andrew Cook never bothered to even tell me that dogs were here and that my partner wasn't allowed in here. But I wouldn't even be here at all if it wasn't for my partner and his father helping to subsidise this. And I tell you what, my partner is the safest person in the world to be around. Yes, we've had altercations, like all partners do. Someone even said that to me. Every partner fights with their partner. It's part of life. You go and have a look on my Facebook wall and you see what that thug PC McCarthy did to me. Because we are not letting this go, sweethearts. We're not letting it go. Your crimes are being monitored up there. And those of you who think in your hearts that Yeshua HaMashiach, our Saviour, Jesus Christ to you, you think he's going to listen to you when he comes back. Because it's all being documented. Every little thing that you are doing is being documented. So I came very close to suing the Herald for libel. And at that dangerous property, where one of my assailants was mentioned in the BBC and national news twice, whom I recorded assaulting me and attacking me, and I used the very dictaphone that Sergeant Simmons told me to purchase to record this antisocial behaviour, and guess what? They unlawfully arrested me for doing it. You owe me thousands of pounds in compensation. You owe me, as many people have said, the £12,000 of back pip that went on those dear god-awful hotels on the seafront in Eastbourne. Oh yes, and all those councillors who know about my videos. They know about my videos. And they wouldn't tell me how they knew. It's amazing, isn't it? Just read the article. I don't really want to read it because they're just patting themselves on the back. Nominated by colleagues for his dedication to tackling county lines drug dealing and cuckooing of vulnerable people, showing incredible drive and motivation to disrupt criminality and protect the most vulnerable. You didn't protect me though, did you, PC Scott Franklyn Lester? What did you do with that recording that I gave to you? When you just suddenly burst into my hotel room at the Cavendish. And the reason why I fled the property was because of you. I could have sued. The number of times I could have sued all of you. I said, bring on the... you said you've met John Alexander Patterson. I met him in the psychiatric unit. He's exposing your fraud. The Ministry of Defence shoved him in there. He showed me the legalese documents to do with baby organ harvesting. He went to Scotland Yard with these legalese documents, and you lot were out of your jurisdiction, and you've met him. Is his face out there? No, of course not. But I'd be proud if he was my father. You've put him in prison. You've put him on mental health frauds. He is protecting babies and children and exposing this satanic Britain that we are living in. And you've met him, have you, Scott? And you released me onto the street in my nightwear. And there were dangerous criminals in that property. I've been telling the paralegal this today. Because this really is gonna, when hits the fan, you can do so much evil. But me and Darren haven't suicided. We're still here. Praise Abba Yahweh. I don't know who or what you think you are. Who you are bowing down to. But believe me, this is being documented in the court of heaven, the Shamayim, alright? So anyway. Yes, so that's Scott Franklyn Lester for you. I'll put a link to the article, and I'm also going to put a link to Rachel Caruso. I'll speak about her in a minute. I knew of who she was throughout, at the time that I was assaulted on Beachy Head by those three stooges. I'd just been threatened with someone going into my hotel room at the Citrus Hotel, and Caroline Ansell MP was in on this corruption, as she has been, and she thinks she's a Christian. But believe me, Yeshua HaMashiach is watching you, Caroline Ansell MP. Our Saviour's watching all of... It's all being documented. It's all being documented. As Darren said to me, everything that's happening to me, you can't cover your crimes. The corruption, the unseen evil. Ephesians have nothing to do with the works, the evil deeds, rather expose them, and that's what I'm doing. And the more you try and cover it up, the worse it will be for all of you. So there he is with all his medals, You have absolutely no shame, do you? None of you do. And yet, who did you get to stay with me to keep me safe at the all-female property that was sold to one particular licensee? One of the female licensees told me that she was told she was coming to a women's refuge. It wasn't a women's refuge. It was an all-female temporary accommodation. The very first time I was attacked and assaulted, Charles Lucas Property Management, along with the corrupt Eastbourne Sussex police, whom I recorded abusing me verbally, physically, everything, actually told Darren to stay with me to keep me safe. That very first time that I was attacked by a very, very dangerous young female, great big butch female, attacked whilst I was in the bar, to the point where I thought she was going to kill me, and I was climbing out of the window. I ran downstairs dripping wet. It was like a scene from The Shining horror. Splinters in the door, splinters in the carpet, hole, great big hole in the, punched the door in. And I was saying to the paralegal today, isn't it interesting that they'd asked Darren to stay with me to keep me safe? And even with just the two of us in that all-female HMO, I was absolutely terrified. The doors were locked and bolted up. It was turned into a fortress. And then they started bringing in the other dangerous females who, for whatever reason, started harassing and attacking me. And then that disgusting, vile creature who had been mugging the elderly with her mother for a second time and were mentioned in the national news. Look up. Sherelle Clark and Dion Clark, mother and daughter, jailed for 5 years for mugging the elderly. Then you'll see another article, Hampshire Constabulary, where they're doing the same thing on the Isle of Wight. And this PC Scott Franklyn Leicester, 29th of November 2022, he's named as Officer of the Year. And his mates have nominated him. Well, just ask the manager of Poundland what he thinks of PC Scott Franklyn Leicester, because he's got a very different view as well, just like me. He said he has got a name. He's known for bullying the vulnerable, but that's not what his mates are saying. So, there you go. This is the UK police for you. And as for Katie Bourne, oh, Katie Bourne, what did you do to John Patterson? Why didn't you just stick to dancing? I mean, really. Elevated up in the ranks. Why? Just because you went to a prestigious school? I tell you what, my late mother went to a prestigious all-girls school. She had a privileged upbringing during the war. She travelled the world. My grandmother lived through 2 world wars, so that for the past 7 years, Eastbourne police could torture me. And the MP and the local and all the councillors. You know, none of you are adults. There are no competent adults anymore in society. Or so it would appear. It's infantile, it's demented, it's psychotic, psychopathic, narcissistic. And I'm going to put a link to Rachel Caruso, because Rachel Caruso let me just see if I'm still recording my video. Just want to make sure I'm still filming. Yes, I'm still filming. Good. She's got a channel called No Witness. And I'm so glad I watched this video she did from around the same time that I was being heavily tortured. Well, it happened in February. I told the paralegal because I was beaten very badly by PC McCarthy when I received news of my father's death. Bruises all over my body. And just hours before that, I had let Ray Savage, a speaker at the conference I went to at Ashburnham Place in December, rung him in distress saying my father died. Now, he was a speaker at a Truthers conference, and he just happens to have a friend who's a mutual friend of my late mother's, and he comes from a small village not too far from Eastbourne. And it's a very small world, and Mark Devlin was there. And Mark Devlin recently mentioned Rachel Caruso, whom I have been watching for the past few years. I'm aware of her, and I watch bits and pieces. And she's an MK Ultra American victim of human trafficking, and I can relate to her on, even though she's into shamanism and all of that, and the New Age deceptions, I can still relate to her. And she's recently uploaded a video where the way she's being spoken to by a female officer is exactly the exact same socially engineered, narcissistic pitter-patter. I've often said about the "we're going round in circles" phrase, that if I'd be a rich woman if I had a penny for every time I've heard that phrase and then been hung up on. And that's exactly what Rachel had in that video, where she was assaulted and apprehended, and it was so triggering for me because the way she was being spoken to, "you're not listening," and is the phrase stonewall? I know, I'm not sure. I can't, but it's sort of where you're being like shut down, and you're not listening, and just it was just and the fact that the woman had a southern accent, because the thing is, she's in lovely Totnes, and I've got happy memories of Devon which are being ruined by all this, because I can relate to it so much. It's just a shame that Rachel was just funny this one time, and because she wanted me to buy a session with her, which I wouldn't anyway, because I don't do anything that goes against scripture. I wouldn't have paid for a session with her, but I can relate to this woman. And Mark Devlin said she was going to be doing a talk in Battle, which is my neck of the woods, a few months ago. But then but Ray Savage, one of the speakers at the conference, does not realise that my home has been brutally stolen from me, and the day I spoke to him, that I was beaten by this thug on our world famous suicide spot, very badly this time. See, this is what you guys need to wake up to. You're not going to see. They need to hand themselves in, these Eastbourne police officers, because it's up to life in prison for their malfeasance of office. And as the English Constitutional Party said, and as I've said for 2 decades, one day there will be riots, and the Liberals will be hiding, quivering under their desks, while the real heroes fight for yours and your children's and your children's children's freedoms, which are already being illegally stolen from us. because my partner has suggested that I get my Iranian lady friend as a witness for my paralegal, because she gave me a massage. I rang her in distress when that thug, if you look on my Facebook wall, that thug and his colleagues dragged me off the patrol centre grounds, telling me I didn't need a mental health nurse. I just had news of my father's death, and his estate are doing the job of adult social care. This is what I mean. It's going to blow up. Trust me. The more you deflect, the more you'll make it harder for yourselves. So basically, so what I'm saying here is, I'm going to keep my voice down because it's 1 o'clock in the morning. I had to get paramedics to look at my hands because I was my hands were swollen in pain. Because I rang my Iranian lady friend, Amira, and went round to her. She said, I'll give you a massage. She has not seen the bruises that thug caused me. And the fact that he arrested my partner, and a month later, 2 days after I was dragged out of my home that was given to me by my GP and the council after just 4 months, and the care coordinator was sacked. This is why I can relate to Rachel Caruso in so many different ways. And then on my birthday, 2 days later in March, that same thug who did what he did to me in February as a response to my learning of my father's death, he, PC Lyons, PC Ford and PC McNaughton, it was mostly PC McCarthy and PC Ford, those two male thugs. PC Ford 2 days earlier had dragged me out of my home. Then on my birthday 2 days later in A&E, they're all on top of me, throwing me on the ground, putting a leg restraint on me because they didn't like what I was saying about our freedoms and our rights. And their crimes, their very serious crimes against me. And they're calling PC McCarthy, called Darren a C word to my face. This is what I've been saying to the paralegal. I said, your job is your job. It might not be within your remit, but these are crimes. This is still going live, as my partner said, and it's still serious. So whether she wants to hear it or not, she has to, whether it's within her remit or not. Because these public servants have just brutally taken my home from me, assaulted and injured me, and these are very serious crimes. Do you realise, what they did to me, what Shani did to me in the psychiatric unit is still by law a hangable offence under Nuremberg Treaty. So obviously, Scott Franklyn Lester, Senior, you weren't listening to me when I said roll on the Nuremberg trials, because you've got your mates to elevate you when you should be stepping down. You got all your medals, you've got your awards. You did not do your job. You had me unlawfully arrested over a welfare check. I was close to I could have got compensation through the Legal Ombudsman, and I came close to suing the Herald for libel. And there's nothing more to say. You all need to hand yourselves in. Go and have a look at your oath. I've read your oath. The oath that you give. And as for Dr. Stewart, my GP's Hippocratic oath, not Hippocratic oath. Right. I have nothing more to say. We're all liable for your failure to stop and correct, and you've committed many, many crimes. Anyway, I'll put a link to, hopefully Rachel wouldn't mind if I put a link to her video and to Scott Franklyn Lester Senior's article.